And I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the original teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. I will be offering this quote from his teachings. We're doing this every weekday at 12 o'clock. My husband Riemann and I alternating. Today I'm on Ananda on Camino Island, and it is absolutely gorgeous today. In the 60s, but sunny and beautiful. So today's reading is very brief, but it has a very important teaching in it. If you want to feel God's guidance in your life, don't waste time talking idly with others. Silence is the altar of spirit. And I find this particular reading, this particular little piece, not so little piece of teaching, very important in most of our lives because we have difficulty discerning between what is idly talking with others and what is meaningfully talking with others. I'm thinking now of idly being sort of more of a social need that we have to connect. And so in order to scratch that itch for needing some social interaction, we begin a discussion. It can be an idle discussion. It can be a deeply meaningful discussion. It's just simply not essential, and it's coming more from our need rather than the need of the person we're speaking to, who may very well be enjoying some silence. It is the altar of spirit. What I'm thinking of right now as an example is one that Swami Kriyananda, Ananda's founder, gave when he was first on the spiritual path and living in Yogananda's ashram. It was rare for him to have a private moment with Yogananda. And as it happened, one day he was on the patio with him and with Yogananda and found himself completely alone with Yogananda. And he had been dreaming of this moment for quite some time. He'd perhaps been only there for a few months. I can't remember now. But the point was, this is a moment, wow, here he could ask a spiritual question. He could get an answer to something that was important to him. And yet in that moment, he couldn't think of something that was critically important to him. So just to say something, he said, "How does Om sound?" And Yogananda responded with, "Om." And then Kriyananda said, "Well, how do you do the technique?" And Yogananda goes, "Om, Om." Places his hands like that, and then walks away out of the area. And Swami Kriyananda, first he was a little sad that that was it. Yogananda was done answering his question. And obviously Yogananda knew that Kriyananda knew the answer to the question. He was simply making idle conversation, even though it was on a important spiritual point. But it was idle because it was coming his need, his desire for an interaction. And so he was just up as he went, you know. And Yogananda, of course, understood this and responded accordingly, kindly, but nevertheless, that was the end of that conversation. So I'm pointing this out because sometimes, often, we find ourselves in social situations with others where, when we're thinking of them, it would be helpful to engage them in a simple conversation. It can be a spiritual conversation. It can be commenting on, you know, something beautiful they're wearing that day, or, you know, just something to allow them to feel connected, because otherwise they might be too shy or lonely even, but certainly not necessarily lonely, but certainly they have the need for a connection, and we sense that. And that's completely different than when we have the need and potentially impose it. And even if it isn't an imposition, it still becomes idle chatter, and it creates a habit that has the mind chattering idly. When we try to sit for meditation and be still and still our minds, it will have practiced restlessness that day, and it will be harder to get the mind to become still. So practicing silence, the art of being content in silence, don't they often say that, you know, that a couple is well matched for each other if they're able to be comfortable sitting in the same room and simply being silent? So practicing the art of silence, that is the thought for today. Joy to you, and we will see you again tomorrow. Blessings. Bye-bye now.